Welcome to WiredToHunt's Whitetail How-Tos, where we provide a step-by-step tutorial for one important deer hunting task.
We see an awful lot of emphasis on trophies and trophy hunting in the whitetail space, and I totally get that. I've been a part of it a long time, and I love a big buck just as much as anyone does. But I also see a lot of reasons why we don't necessarily all have to be trophy hunters. There's a lot of reasons to go out there and just do what you want in the wild. I see a lot of people come in to the hunting space and they start out with pretty high standards. Like, well, I want a Pope and Young caliber buck, or I want a 4.5-year-old. A lot of people look at it and go, well, everybody's shooting big bucks because what they see on Instagram, and I'm a whitetail hunter and I take this pretty seriously, so I'm gonna do that too. But when you see people with short resumes try that, those are a lot of the people who come into hunting, get real serious, and then they're the ones who are selling their saddle 3 years later and they're getting out and they're gonna go fishing or something. We get a pretty high turnover with hunters who come in and have unrealistic standards for their hunting situation. You might just not be in a position where you've done this long enough to be like, you know what, I'm gonna ratchet up this challenge and hunt mature ones. You might not have a whole lot of time. A lot of people who are my age or have that family situation going on, they go, you know, I don't have days and days and days to hunt anymore, and they really want to be happy out in the woods. And if you only have a very limited amount of time and your target's 150 plus, you might be in for a whole bunch of seasons where you're disappointed. Some people just don't care about the antlers and they just really want to have a fun time, and they like shooting deer and they like eating deer. And I can tell you, as somebody who every couple of years for sure shoots some kind of forky or a little 2.5-year-old or something, they're delicious. And they're awesome to eat, they're awesome to drag out. You don't have a taxidermy bill with them. There's a lot of reasons to maybe do that. One thing that I'm real nervous about that I see in the whitetail space these days is this travel to hunt public land thing is really hot. I love public land, I think it's a gift, but I see a lot of people go, you know what, I'm gonna travel to X state or Y state and my standards are 130, 140, nice 4.5, 5.5-year-old buck. You could go to Iowa 5 years in a row and maybe not have that encounter. If you really don't know what you're doing, you could go to a lot of these big buck states and not have that happen. And so traveling to hunt can kind of open your aperture and go, you know what, I probably shouldn't be bringing my at-home standards with me here. I should be having some fun and I should be lowering those standards a little bit. There's states where I go to where I'm like, it's a big one or nothing. And there's states where I go to where I'm like, man, if there's a deer coming down the trail, it's probably gonna be a shooter. At the end of those trips, I know which ones I have more fun on. They may not be as rewarding sometimes as killing that big buck on public land somewhere, but just in the moment enjoyment, there's a lot to be said for that. We see sort of one side of this presented so often, and I know I'm guilty of this being in the hunting industry, but there's a lot of fun to be had out there, and there's no shame in if you just like, you know what, that one does it for me, and even though it's a 35-inch 6-pointer, I'm gonna thump him, make a good shot and be happy. If that's what it takes, do that, and don't apologize to anyone.
If you want more whitetail hunting advice, please listen to the Wired to Hunt podcast and the Wired to Hunt Foundation's podcast, and we'll give you everything you needed to hear about deer.